Yikes. Hey everyone, welcome to the Dill Pickle Movie Network. I am Dylan Randazzo, and you can tell by the tone of my voice that I'm not particularly excited to be talking about this movie. Every critic goes into a movie wanting it to be good. We are film fans first and foremost. We want movies to be great. We love talking about good movies, but sometimes movies come along that are just hard. It's hard to look past some of the issues in some films, and some films are bad because of their plot, because of their artistic choices, and this film certainly has some very weird artistic choices. But the main reason why so many people have been so negatively affected by this film is because of the portrayals of autism, and so many critics have talked about it, but I think I felt it was important to use my voice to address these portrayals, or one portrayal in particular, and just talk about why it is such a problem. I went into this movie being a huge Sia fan in terms of her songs and her music and her vocal work. I really, really loved Chandelier. It's one of my favorite songs. I love Titanium. I love all her songs. So coming into this, I was like, you know what, I'm going to give it the smallest benefit of the doubt that at least the music might be good. I should stop using the word music because it's the name of a character in the film and the film itself. I was hoping the songs would be good. I was hoping maybe it would have some fun music videos, and they did. I mean, there were some good music videos, but when you have something this controversial at the forefront in casting someone who is not autistic, playing an autistic character who is playing such a really over-the-top stereotype of an autistic person, it overshadows the rest of the film to the point where I couldn't even tell you the name of one of the songs in the film a few minutes after finishing watching it, because I'm just so caught up on the portrayal of Music herself. So if you didn't know, the film is about a girl named Music, played by Maddie Ziegler. She is an autistic girl who loses her grandmother, and her sister, who is an addict, comes to live with her to take care of her, basically. And her sister, played by Kate Hudson, doesn't really want to be a guardian. She has her own issues she's dealing with in real life, and she doesn't want to take on this task of being a guardian, but through the relationship with Music and the relationship with her neighbor, played by Leslie Odom Jr., she is able to kind of set a new path for her life. And, you know, on paper, the story itself, it's not a terrible story. It's just the way it was executed, the way it was cast, and the way it was directed that just make it so tone-deaf and unappealing for so many, including myself. Starting with the technical elements of the film alone, I think the music videos, it's clear that most of the attention in this film went toward the music, the songs. I can't keep saying music. Don't name your movie music, or there's going to be an issue when talking about the actual songs in the movie. Let me rephrase. The songs themselves, the music videos are fine. There's a lot of great production value to them, but it almost seems like they were so focused on making the musical numbers so exciting and vibrant and fresh and colorful, it almost felt like the plot was an afterthought. And I know this is probably not the case. I'm sure Sia had the plot conjured up before she started thinking about the different musical and singing elements, but because of the way it's executed, it does feel like the actual core plot of the film does take kind of the back seat to all the big production numbers. For a normal movie musical, those are the highlights, but because these songs aren't that memorable, and again, there's that lingering knowledge of how problematic this film is, it makes all these moments unenjoyable, to where you're really left with the plot to dissect and digest. And the plot itself, it's a messy script. It's thought out, but it's not easy to relate to a ton of these characters. It's not easy to fall in love with these characters. And again, I keep coming back to the fact that one of the main characters is played by a non-autistic girl, and she is putting on a really, really dramatic, over-the-top stereotype of an autistic person. And I don't know whether or not to blame an actor for their choices, especially when you have people behind the camera telling them, yeah, that's a good choice, or yeah, that's a bad choice. And I think Sia being this mentor figure to Maddie Ziegler, the actress who plays music, I would have hoped that Sia would have had the intuition to say, maybe we should tone it down a little bit, or maybe cast someone more appropriate for the role anyway. You know, you can still have Maddie do a bunch of dancing because that's really the highlight. Maddie Ziegler is a great dancer, and you can definitely utilize her as a great dancer. But did we need to cast her in this role, and did we need her to put on as much of a stereotype as she did? And I think a lot of people have addressed this. I have a bunch of just sources of different people, different news sources about Sia's apologies toward the community about the film. A lot of people, BBC, National Council of Severe Autism, Autistic Self Advocacy Network, a lot of them are talking about the film in a negative light because Sia is making these apologies, but she's making them a little too late. And she's making these apologies after she's already stood by her decisions and said, this is the film I wanted to make, and I stand by these decisions. To now backtrack and say, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was offensive, it just seems off to me. And like I said, I was a big fan of her music beforehand, her songs beforehand, and I probably will still listen to her songs, but as an artist, it's hard to look at her the same as a person, especially after some of the judgments she made for this film. I feel like the film almost didn't know what the audience for the film was. I didn't know if the tone, it just seemed a little all over the place. And, you know, you have Maddie Ziegler, who is very popular with the younger demographic. She was on Dance Moms. Her sister, Mackenzie, just won The Masked Dancer. They're on TikTok. They're big stars on Instagram. You know, this is going to draw a younger crowd. But then you have scenes, particularly like one toward the end of the film involving a character death, that is just so off-putting and just doesn't make sense within the rest of the context of the film. It's just way darker than it needs to be. There's just a lot of choices made that makes you question, what was the target audience for this film? Because clearly people within the autistic community or the special needs community aren't going to be too pleased with what they're seeing in terms of the portrayals of their community. People who are tied to friends and family members who have autism or special needs aren't going to be too satisfied. It's really hard to find what this target audience is. I will say one positive is that we do get to hear Leslie Odom Jr. sing, and any movie where we get to hear Leslie Odom Jr. sing is a real treat. The only problem being, again, that idea that all this really, really problematic casting and depictions are still lingering in the back of your head. So even when you're hearing Leslie Odom Jr., one of God's most beautiful voices, singing on screen, you can't just let your brain escape from the rest of what's going on. You know, your brain is still in the movie and still thinking about all the other problematic things that you can't really enjoy Leslie Odom Jr.'s singing. And Leslie Odom Jr. only sings for like 2 minutes and then it's all over and we're back in the movie. If I had to recommend a film for you to hear Leslie Odom Jr. sing, I do recommend One Night in Miami. He absolutely steals the show with a final song in that you will really enjoy. Or you should watch Hamilton. He's great in that. Listen to the Hamilton soundtrack. Listen to his albums. If you really like Leslie Odom Jr.'s voice and want to hear him sing, please seek it out other places, because this film doesn't nearly show off his talents enough, and I do think it's not worth it to spend all this money or all this time watching this film just to hear a beautiful 2-minute song from Leslie Odom Jr. Other than that, I really can't say I was too impressed with anything else. The dialogue is weird. I mean, one of the characters refers to sending music to what she calls the people pound, which just not really a great term to use. People pound, indicating that she's an animal, and a character responds to that saying, "You've got a dark vibe." Like, it just doesn't work. The writing here, it's so tone deaf. And people who are saying, "Oh, this is like The Room" or "This is the Book of Henry," no. The Room and the Book of Henry are so bad they're good. They're so funny, they're amusing. Because they're so bad, you can't help but watch it in amazement and be like, "What am I watching? This is insane." No, this is just flat out bad. This is not a laughably bad film. This is a film that is just bad. It's offensive, it's unappealing, it's tone deaf. It just leaves a bad taste in your mouth at the end of the day. And I hate to be ripping on a film because the last thing I want as a film fan is to say, you know, this film was bad. And I hate using that word bad, but when you have such a problematic choice at the forefront of your film, not just a supporting character that comes and goes in 5 minutes, and you say, oh, that was a bad choice, but we can overlook it and focus on the rest of the film. The presence of music as a character is in the entire film, so it's hard to really separate from that problematic casting and that problematic depiction and the problematic directing choice. It's sad to say, but this is the first film since the entire pandemic started where I've actually been glad that I didn't have to see this in a theater, because I hate walking out of theaters. I've never walked out of a theater. I've walked out of a theater once in my life, and it was when I lost a tooth during March of the Penguins, and my mouth was bleeding so much that my mom had to take me home. That is the only time I've ever left the theater. And I think even for a bathroom break, I rarely leave the theater even for a bathroom break. And this is just one of those films that I would have had a really tough time sitting through in a theater. I sat through it on my couch, but I had breaks where I got to get up and walk and just go think about something else for a minute, because it's hard to sit and watch through this. I mean, like I said, the music videos they're well made, but there's just not enough in those music videos to truly take me away from the rest of the plot that is so overshadowing the rest with its problematic nature. I have to say, this petition that a lot of people are signing to get this film's nomination revoked at the Golden Globes, I can definitely see why people are calling for this action to take place, because on one of the highest viewed award ceremonies in the world, or at least in the country, it's hard to believe that this is one of the 5 films that they chose for Best Musical or Comedy. You have films like Palm Springs, like Borat 2, even The Prom, which I was not a huge fan of, but at least appreciated a lot of aspects of it. I thought some of the performances were good. I thought the actual production design was great. Hamilton, some would argue it's not really a film. Some were saying it's a filmed stage production. Honestly, I was against the Hamilton nomination just because I wanted more actual films to be nominated. But honestly, I would take Hamilton over this any day being nominated. I think Hamilton being nominated for this award is the least of my concerns at this point. It's going to be really interesting to see when the Golden Globes come this weekend, to see how they address it. Because usually each film gets their own moment to, show a few minutes or show a trailer and say, this is up for Best Picture, it's music, and I'm really interested to see what they do. It's just really baffling that this is one of the 5 movies they chose. There are films that I didn't even love, like Emma, that I still think are leagues and bounds better than this that they could have nominated. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth, and I think if the Delroy Lindo snub in Best Actor wasn't enough, I think this being nominated for Best Picture really makes the Globes look bad. And like I said, first and foremost, I never want to go into a film hating it. I never go into a film already with preconceived notions, but having all this controversy surrounding it, headed into it, it was hard not to just know I was sitting down for something that was gonna piss me off. And I knew it would piss me off, but I didn't know it would piss me off to this extent. And it's really unfortunate to see. And I hope a lot of the people involved in this film do learn from it. I hope society and Hollywood as a whole learn from it and really think about their casting choices. And again, I don't know if this is on Maddie Ziegler. I know contractually there might have been some contractual obligations for her to do this movie and accept this role. But then on set, when she's performing the role, there should have been someone to tell her, hey, let's go a different approach to this role. Let's attack this role from a different angle. So that's my review of music. I know it turned into more of a conversation about Hollywood as a whole, but I think it's important to have these conversations. I usually like to get on here and talk about movies I liked to review because I want to tell you about them and I want you to seek them out. But I will tell you, this is not a film I think you should seek out. If you watch anything, watch a clip on YouTube or watch a trailer on YouTube. You do not need to sit down and watch the entire film, just because I don't really think anyone could give me a real clear, positive appraisal for it and say that this is something worth watching. I mean, everyone I've heard from has felt a similar way as me, either a a slightly less extreme or more extreme extent of what I'm saying, but they are generally on the same page as me. That's all I got for this one. Thank you for watching. I know this was a tough one. I don't like giving movies bad reviews, but this one was pretty rough. So here's what you can look forward to in the next week here on the channel. You can look forward to Golden Globe predictions. As you can probably predict, I am not predicting music to win any of the 2 awards it is up for. It's up for 2 awards, which is something. So you can expect Golden Globe predictions at the end of the week, and then after the Golden Globes I will have a reaction video, live reactions of my time watching the Golden Globes. I will definitely get a reaction of what happens surrounding this film when they address it, and I will put that out after the Golden Globes have happened in my own reaction on how the awards went and what that means headed into the rest of award season. As always, you can check me out on my podcast every Monday with Kelsey Kilpatrick called Marvelous Movie Mondays, where we talk about all things Marvel. We're right in the middle of WandaVision. We're almost at the tail end, and then we will be doing a MCU villains ranking, so stick with us then every Monday. I post videos here every week, and I thank you for joining me this time. Please like, please subscribe, please spread the news. I promise I will have some positive reviews coming once I see some more films that I really like and can't wait to talk to you about. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe. Have a good one.